What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Wrestling with Johners. This is episode 158, and it's been a few weeks since I've recorded an episode of Wrestling with Johners. It's got to be said, but I've got a brilliant guest with me this week. We're going to be talking about NXT Halloween Havoc. So what a tremendous show, and what a tremendous guest I've got to help me cover that show from the Turnbuckle Arms, part of the Brew'd. I've got Lexi Helms. So Lexi, brilliant to have you back on the Wrestling with Johners podcast again. You've been on the show a couple of times before. It's been a little while. I think it was probably just before WrestleMania when all of this COVID pandemic thing was kicking off and confusing the hell out of us as to whether there was going to be fans or no fans, whether it's going to be at the PC or not at the PC. But how are you? And great to have you back on the podcast.
Oh, thank you again for having me. I say it every time, but thank you. Yeah, it's been good. It's been crazy. Turnbuckle Arms is doing well, taking over quite nicely.
Doing very well.
So yeah, I decided to go on a little break and come over here for a minute.
But no, it's a pleasure to speak to you. It's a pleasure to speak to any member of the Brew'd, of course. And like I said, the Turnbuckle Arms is going from strength to strength. Catch their monthly episodes, usually kind of mid-month, and they do their kind of bonus shows as well, which you call them the Swift Half, isn't it, Lexi? I think. And the last Swift Half you did was with Grizz, and you've recently recorded your regular monthly episode. But the Turnbuckle Arms is doing some great stuff. We were talking a bit off air about up and coming episodes, but tell us about your experience with the Turnbuckle Arms, because we've kind of got a good bunch of guys, and yourself, of course, as part of the Brew'd. It's turned into a bit of a success.
Yeah, I'm blown away by it. I'll be absolutely honest with you. Like the 6 members of the Brew'd, including myself, are fantastic, and it doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel awkward. It's really nice sort of little family going on, like a family dynamic. So, thank you very much for being our creator.
No, that's fine.
Our Johnny Mauer, St. John. Still need to get used to
that.
It's all right. I thought I'd change it a little bit so it's not as like perverse or, but yeah, love it.
You've got a good mix of personalities. Obviously, there's yourself. You've got Grizz, Big Chocky T, Chris Thornton, of course. You got Michael Jolly, Jason, and Matt Bayliss has taken a bit of a hiatus from the Brew'd, but I'm sure we'll see Matt back again as part of the Brew'd and Turnbuckle Arms soon. But a good mixture of personalities, and the podcast can be found on all podcast channels, pretty much, can't it, Lexi?
Yeah, pretty much. You can find us on social media as well. We are on Twitter. We're on Facebook now, which has just launched. We are on Instagram. Again, we are contactable via email as well. If you email us at theturnbucklearms@gmail.com. And it's really nice. It's really nice to see people following us and getting involved and listening. And I get to brag that the Turnbuckle Arms is the only podcast that my partner listens to and subscribes to. Won't do anybody else, just fine. So I'm like,
brilliant.
That's bonus points for you.
Yeah, and the concept is kind of based around 6 friends having pub banter, pub chatter about pro wrestling, like you would. I know that pubs have reopened now, and that they weren't open when we started the Turnbuckle Arms. But the concept is, just the type of banter and conversation and chatter you would have around a pub table, with a few drinks and just talking about wrestling. And it seems to, dare I say it, pun intended, flowed quite well.
Yeah, it was just like meeting up, once a month as a kind of break from the world and everything. And it's been really good. It's nice to have that interaction with other wrestling fans outside of my friendship circle. I know I said before we are like a family, and we are that. But sometimes it's nice to hear the different opinions. It's nice to hear the different side of the arguments that my circle wouldn't bring in, if that makes sense. I think our next episode is going to be dedicated to Chris Jericho. I'm not sure, but I think it is, if I read the schedule right. So I'm very, very much looking forward to that one. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where that goes as well. So
yeah, absolutely. And you've covered the cinematic universe. You've covered Halloween and the Halloween gimmick and how that's been used over the years in pro wrestling. So lots in the can already. Lots already out there to check out, and lots more to come. But let's talk about NXT Halloween Havoc then, because it took place a couple of nights ago. It hasn't officially dropped on the WWE Network yet, but we've all got our ways and means of finding these things, of course. And I was desperate to talk about it, especially after the fantastic Takeover 31 from the beginning of the month, and they first announced Halloween Havoc. But what's your kind of recollection of the WCW version of Halloween Havoc? Because of course it's a WCW concept from the 90s. We haven't had a Halloween Havoc for getting on for 20 years now, Lexi, but brought back under the, dare I say, WWE or NXT umbrella, and it's a much loved concept, pay-per-view concept, and I was thrilled. I was over the moon when I kind of heard that it was coming back. But can you remember much from the WCW days, if you had a chance to go back and revisit some matches or some shows, and what stood out to you?
So it's quite fortuitous that I'm on now, because our last podcast at Turnbuckle Arms was about Halloween and about Halloween Havoc previous. So to do my research for that, I went back and I watched all the previous Halloween Havocs and really enjoyed them. My experience of Halloween Havoc as a child, because that was the sort of age that I was in when I was when Halloween Havoc was happening, I never got to access them, never got to see them, never got to watch them. So if we take the most infamous Halloween Havoc event, which I think most people will think of, is the DDP versus Goldberg match that got cut short. Yeah. I couldn't understand why they were showing that on Nitro. And I was like, okay, maybe they're doing something new, and then it never happened again. So yeah, I think I've always loved the set. I've always loved the stills that I saw, but now being able to watch them and picking up on little things that they did, like I noticed one of the tombstones had Crockett written on it, and I thought that was a nice little nod. I didn't see any of that in this Halloween Havoc. I may have missed it. If I have, please let us know, because it'd be good to go back and see. But yeah, I loved it. I love the concept. I love Halloween anyway, so yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, thinking back to the WCW days, and I loved it all as well. And I didn't have access to the pay-per-views as they happened live, but I would always kind of get them in through tape traders or watch them on some German channel with German commentary, and kind of had it on mute just to kind of watch the action. But I think it was RTL or something like that. But the sets really stood out to me. The giant pumpkins, the Grim Reaper, the spin the wheel, make the deal wheel itself. The announcers would tend to dress up in fancy dress. I remember Tony Schiavone one year dressing up as the Phantom of the Opera. I think another year he dressed up as Jesse the Body Ventura alongside Jesse the Body Ventura, so that was quite fun.
Nice.
I mean, it was kind of the fun of it all that I absolutely loved. The wrestling action was sometimes good, wasn't always good. I mean, there were some gimmicks that are synonymous with the bad side of WCW and Halloween Havoc, like the Yeti, I think the giant Paul White was part of it. It's one, he wasn't that much of a terrible gimmick, but you get what I'm trying to say. And but some matches that really stood out to me that I absolutely loved. I remember there was a tag match featuring the Nasty Boys versus Cactus Jack and Kevin Sullivan. It was like a Philadelphia street fight, and it was awesome. They were brawling all around the arena, shovels and stop signs and garbage cans, and that was pretty good. And that was at the height of kind of Extreme Wrestling and ECW, so they were kind of had their own version of that. Sting versus Vader, I think that was possibly from about 1992. Sting versus Vader versus Cactus Jack from about 93.
Wow.
Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio from '97,
Yeah.
and there was some kind of more matches that doesn't stand out for all the right reasons. I mean, Hogan versus Roddy Piper doesn't live very fondly in many wrestling fans' minds. It wasn't a great wrestling match. The build and I suppose the kind of storyline was good, but the match itself between two wrestlers that were way past their prime wasn't all that good. And then I think it was in 1991 Halloween Havoc, you had the Chamber of Horrors cage match where you had to win by getting your an opponent, one of your opposition, into an electric chair and turn it on. I remember Cactus Jack got Abdullah the Butcher into this electric chair, turned it on. Abdullah the Butcher did his best selling, actually being electrocuted. But there's some kind of moments that you have to go back and see just for cringe value, I suppose. But it all makes up this kind of lovely romantic package of Halloween Havoc from WCW. But enough about the WCW days. Like I say, I'm chuffed to bits that NXT brought it back. They've recently brought back the Great American Bash, which was another WCW concept. So you never know. We might see more of these older, more romanticized WCW pay-per-views come up with NXT, especially in the current climate. But let's talk about this Wednesday's show. When it was first announced, I thought it was going to be like a takeover special. But then when the date was released, I found out that it was just going to be a regular Wednesday episode. But not a regular Wednesday episode, kind of a special, to be honest with you. And it felt very special. It felt more takeover-ish than a standard Wednesday NXT. But let's talk about the opening video package, because it was different. It had a very 1960s, 1970s B-movie, kind of like Tales from the Crypt Keeper, Monsters sort of vibe as the kind of opening video package. And then we were greeted by Shotzi. We spoke a bit off air about Shotzi Blackheart. I thought she delivered brilliantly in this. I thought it really made her stand out as a big star. She had the wild hair, the horns, but we're all big fans of Shotzi Blackheart and Wrestling with Johners and the Turnbuckle Arms, I'm sure. But and then kind of the opening match, we see Damien Priest. He's kind of played out with a live guitar entrance to his theme. We get Johnny Gargano come out for his match. And what does he do? He kind of, there's only one kind of big gimmick on the stage, and that's a big inflatable pumpkin. And Johnny Gargano goes and deflates it before the show's even got into full swing. What a heel. What a bad guy. But what did you think of this kind of opening video package and the opening sequence? Certainly with Shotzi, I thought she looked fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I said on the Turnbuckle Arms, I didn't fully understand Shotzi's role, and I don't want to take away from it. She did brilliant. She was fantastic. But for me, I don't think it was needed. I said on the Turnbuckle Arms as well that, you know, I can think of scarier former NXT talent that could have been used in place. You know, you look at Shotzi's entrance, it's quite bright, it's quite vibrant. She comes in on a tank. Look at Aleister Black, he does the whole coming up from the floor. He has the black candles. So for me, I think that would have been a better fit, but that's just me. I loved it. I loved the opening title sequence. However, you knew something was going to happen to that pumpkin. You knew something was going to happen because it was completely different to the one that we know and love. And as soon as I saw it, I went, that's out of place. That was a cheap Costco job if I ever saw one.
Yeah. They saved a few pounds and pence on that. It looks very, very cheap and nasty, didn't it?
So, yeah, I mean, absolutely fantastic. One thing that I did question about the beginning bit when Shotzi first came on was it Rob Zombie in the background? Because I didn't see. So was it Rob Zombie? Answer on a postcard, please. But no, absolutely loved it. And it made it feel more special. It was, this is more than NXT. This is more than a takeover. This is Halloween Havoc.
Yeah, it set the stage perfectly, didn't it? It set the scene.
Yeah. If Shotzi is still on the brand next year, if she's still around, will she do the same thing next year, or what will they do next year?
Hopefully she'll be main eventing next year. Hopefully she'll be in that women's title match. I think that she's going to be elevated quite quick from now on, I'm sure. But I mean, it was Shotzi again that she kind of before the match started, she had the honor of spinning the wheel and making the deal for this opening match, and of course it was for the NXT North American Championship. Damien Priest going into it as the champion versus Johnny Gargano, a former North American champion, remember. And Shotzi span the wheel, unlike when Halloween Havoc was first announced and we saw the wheel on a big graphic on the big screen. It was an actual wheel. I'm so pleased that they brought back the spin the wheel gimmick, and it landed on the Devil's Playground match, Lexi, which is essentially no DQ, no count out, falls count anywhere, essentially a street fight with a Halloween theme. So that was really, really good. At least there was no coal miner's glove like that horrendous match between Jake Roberts and Sting with a glove on top of a pole, which really wasn't much of a gimmick anyway, but that was nearly 30 years ago. I digress. Anyway, in this one, let's see. So these two, I mean, you may remember if you watched TakeOver 31, Johnny Gargano and Damien Priest delivered a fantastic match almost a month ago at the last TakeOver, and this match was sure to deliver, but it had a lot more weapons involved, a lot more gimmicks involved in this one. I mean, Johnny Gargano from the outset attempted to use some kendo sticks at ringside. Damien Priest counters with a telescopic nightstick, and they start their big brawl around the outside. Damien Priest uses the steel ring steps as a battering ram, and they fight onto the ramp and the stage area. They go back around ringside, Lexi, and Gargano hits like a sliced bread number 2 on Damien Priest on the kind of the flat side of the steel ring steps, and that looked like it sucked. Gargano gets dropped onto the announce table at ringside. The two then fight to the backstage area where Gargano makes use of a fire extinguisher, trash cans, a crowbar before attempting or hooking in a Gargano escape on the concrete floor. Then Gargano and Priest, they fight around the graveyard set. So we've got no more but giant pumpkin, but we still have a graveyard set, Lexi, and they fight around this graveyard set. Johnny Gargano starts to destroy the champ with several really stiff trash can shots. Then Priest recovers. He looks like he's about to hit his finishing move, the Reckoning, off of this perch, off of the side of this set, when a mystery masked figure dressed like a character out of the Scream movie hits Priest with a lead pipe. Gargano levels Priest with a polystyrene gravestone and sends him crashing off the stage through some sort of a house or part of the set down below. Gargano comes along and crawls over, covers Priest. 1, 2, 3. We've got a new North American champion. Gargano is a 2-time champion. But this was different to their last encounter at TakeOver 31, Lexi. A lot more gimmicks involved, a lot more weapons involved, a lot more brawling around backstage. Did it do anything for you? Did this match deliver? I mean, this match is kind of getting mixed reviews. A lot of people really liking it. I personally felt it was a little bit overproduced or overbooked. I would have preferred to have seen them more in and around the ring, if I'm honest. But you know, it kind of goes hand in hand with the Halloween Havoc concept and the kind of, it was a falls count anywhere or a match after all. But give us your thoughts on this one.
I'm in the camp that loves it. Because there's little gems, and they all 9 times out of 10 involve Gargano. So I noticed that the pumpkin got some revenge because Gargano got caught up in the remains of the pumpkin, which I thought was cool. And then there was a bit when they were going backstage, and there was a coffin bit, and Gargano opens the coffin and this thing jumps out.
Super kicks the skeleton.
Yeah, he super kicks it and calls it stupid. And I was like, yes, that's exactly what we need.
I did like that.
It was a good match. I mean, it's when you have a stipulation match, as is, 9 times out of 10, they don't fully use the stipulations. And I felt that in this match, they really did use the stipulations. Because it went everywhere and anything goes and stuff like that. So it was a great match to start. I mean, you think about the opening matches of Halloween Havoc's past, you know, they've started off really, really strong, and it carried on in this one. So yeah, congratulations, Johnny, 2-time American champion. Yeah, well done.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I must admit, I did enjoy the match. I just found that it was a little bit overproduced, but I found that both performers, both wrestlers, were fantastic during the whole of this match. But yeah, I want to see maybe a rubber match between these two. Maybe give them 2 out of 3 falls inside a ring, or maybe inside a cage, and that's more my cup of tea personally. Yeah. But then we see a rather nervous-looking Cameron Grimes. He gets led to the parking lot to be whisked away for his match with Dexter Lumis. We'll have more on that in a bit. And then we see Pat McAfee and the new tag team champions Danny Burch and Oney Lorcan in the ring, with Pat reminding us about his awesome debut. And it was a very, very good debut against Adam Cole at TakeOver 30 a couple of months ago. Pat rips on the internet wrestling community, explains how he felt disrespected by Adam Cole after their match at TakeOver 30. He explained how it was he who recruited Ridge Holland to attack Adam Cole after TakeOver 31, and how he recruited Burch and Lorcan to further the feud with the Undisputed Era, and they then became the new tag team champions, of course. Kyle O'Reilly, he then comes out minus Roderick Strong and Bobby Fish. And who else is he joined by? None other than the Bruiserweight Pete Dunne. Now, I've got to admit to you, Lexi, I popped when the Bruiserweight's music started. I think it's a fantastic bit of music anyway. Yeah. But knowing that Pete Dunne was back over in the States to continue where he left off back in February or March when he's part of the Bruiserweights with Matt Riddle, of course. Kyle O'Reilly has 2 chairs. He gives one to Pete Dunne. They both go into the ring. It looks like Pete Dunne and Kyle O'Reilly are going to kind of attack McAfee and Burch and Lorcan, but in fact it's Pete Dunne who hits Kyle O'Reilly from behind with the chair, lays waste to the Undisputed Era member, and then you got Oney Lorcan, Danny Burch and Pete Dunne all beating down on Kyle O'Reilly. It looks like Pete Dunne's officially turned heel, which I'm sad about, I've got to be honest, but it does add another member to Pat McAfee's faction. Give us your thoughts on what went down here, because it looks like with TakeOver War Games around the corner, they could be looking at maybe Team McAfee against Team Undisputed Era inside of War Games. Would you be for that match? And what did you think of what went down here?
Absolutely for that match. It's always nice when we know that War Games is coming up, because then we think who's going to get put together. Will there be another women's War Games match, etc., etc. Can I just say, it's very bittersweet that Lorcan and Burch are champions. It came at the expense of Breezango, and I love that guy. Those guys, yeah, they do deserve a little bit better, and they deserved a longer title run. But that's that. One thing that let this segment down, and I don't know whether you picked up on it, for me, was Vic Joseph's commentary, and he says, Pete Dunne is a man of class. And I was like, which Pete Dunne have you been watching, mate? I was like, have you actually watched him? I think that let it down, because knowing the Bruiserweight, as we know the WWE version of the Bruiserweight, he's never sort of been a team player. The only thing possibly down the line is if Tyler Bate and Trent Seven come up. Yeah. Where will his allegiances lie? And I do think that could be a way of ending this stable, and then make it 3-man versus 3-man. But yeah, it was given because of how Pete Dunne started feuding with the Undisputed Era. That wasn't resolved anyway. Yeah. So it's a nice way to reintroduce Peter. I think it made Kyle O'Reilly look a little bit stupid picking Pete Dunne. But it is what it is. It was a great segment. Loved seeing the Bruiserweight back. He looks incredible. His physique is just out of this world at the moment. He's definitely been putting the hours in at the gym, hasn't he? Absolutely, yeah. So absolutely all for it. Bring it on. It's going to be one hell of a match. Yeah. If that's where they're going with it. So
Yeah, and as sad as I was to see Pete Dunne turn heel, I've got to say I do think he makes a more effective heel. He kind of has that certain edge when he's a heel as opposed to being a babyface, and I think he's definitely got this edge. The only other downside for me is that he's not the leader of the group. Of course, Pat McAfee is the leader of the group, but Pete Dunne will obviously be kind of the prominent singles performer within that faction, and it'll be interesting to see where we go from here. Like I say, with War Games around the corner, the rumor is that it could be building towards a 4-on-4 War Games match between UE and Pat McAfee's team with Pete Dunne, Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch, which will be an outstanding match for sure. And then we see Cameron Grimes again, this time. He's getting transported away in this kind of beaten up van with Michael P.S. Hayes, the fabulous Freebird, looking like he's having a great time there, and a very, very nervous Cameron Grimes gets whisked away for his match with Dexter Lumis there. But let's talk very, very briefly about our next match, and it was quite a brief match in itself. Jake Atlas, Lexi, versus Santos Escobar. So my understanding, I don't know if this was made clear during the show, but this was a non-title match, so not a cruiserweight championship match, and only went about three and a half minutes. And it felt more like a handicap match to me, this one, because you had Wacky Wild and Mendoza on the outside, who seemed to be putting in a lot of work for Santos Escobar. So it did feel like a bit of a 3-on-1 handicap, with Jake Atlas eventually losing in this quite short match. I think a lot of people are kind of warming to Jake Atlas as a performer, and they would have liked to have seen maybe a longer match, and maybe this is the start of maybe a bigger program between these two. But anything take your interest in this quite short match, Lexi?
That was one of the things I picked up. It was far too short compared to other matches on the card. I picked up on the confusion about it being a non-title match or a normal title match.
Same here.
I thought I heard them say that it was a title match, but might have missed it, might have got it wrong. And the Rey Mysterio tribute was it was a nice touch.
Love that, yeah.
So for those of you that haven't seen it yet, cover your ears because there's going to be some spoilers. He comes out, Escobar comes out, and he's got purple tights with question marks all over them. And it pays homage to Rey Mysterio versus Eddie Guerrero from Halloween Havoc 97.
Correct, yeah.
So yeah, it was really, really nice. It was a nice touch. So it was a great match. It was just too short. So.
Yeah, well, I think it's probably the start of a bigger program between these two, and they seem to be quite high on Jake Atlas, and the cruiserweight champion is doing some good stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised to see more from these two. But I want to see Isaiah Swerve Scott featured in the cruiserweight championship matches again. I thought Santos Escobar and Swerve Scott had a great match at Takeover 31. So I don't mind any combination of these three. Definitely do it for me. But then we're transported to the Haunted House of Terrors. The match between Cameron Grimes and Dexter Lumis. It was a bit of a cinematic style match with Marilyn Manson's music playing in the background to start off with. Definitely gave a very spooky vibe to it all. This match was essentially Cameron Grimes trying to escape the clutches of zombies and his opponent, Dexter Lumis, of course. And the closing part of this segment, we see Cameron Grimes escaping the clutches of the zombies and kind of escaping the house, running down the street for his life, and seemingly back to the Capitol Wrestling Center, and the match will be continued, so we'll talk more about that match when it continues a bit later on. But this is one of my matches of the night, and I absolutely love this match. Rhea Ripley versus Raquel Gonzalez. Now, one thing I have to say between this and the main event, I think that the women of NXT absolutely stole the show on Wednesday night at Halloween Havoc, and this match was fantastic. Now, we haven't seen a lot from Raquel Gonzalez. She's been involved in tag matches with Dakota Kai, or with the kind of stablemate tag team partner friend Dakota Kai. But this was a kind of breakout moment of her first standout singles match against none other than the excellent Rhea Ripley, former NXT champion, former NXT UK Women's Champion, of course. Now, this match has been built up over the last few weeks on NXT TV, and Ripley and Gonzalez looking to prove who is the most dominant woman on the black and gold brand. So just to take you through some of the highlights, this match started as more of a fight, a proper fight between these two women. The match soon went to the outside with Gonzalez. She drove Rhea Ripley into the fan guards, like the mesh, with a power bomb, and Ripley landed quite hard on the floor after that first bump as well. Gonzalez, she stretched Rhea Ripley back inside the ring. Ripley comes back with a basement drop kick, and these two appear fairly evenly matched for the majority of this match, to be honest with you. We see an inverted cloverleaf from Ripley, and then a spinning sidewalk slam for a close near fall. We see Gonzalez launch Ripley from the top turnbuckle for a 2 count of her own. But this match came to an end, Lexi, when Ripley was able to reverse one of Gonzalez's finishers, leading to a riptide by Rhea Ripley for the impressive and quite hard-fought win, I have to say. This was a really good match. Absolutely loved this match. Up to this point, this is my favourite match of the night. Gonzalez putting on a great display and kind of making a bit of a name for herself in this match. Made a bit of a star-making performance, I think. I thought this was fantastic against the more experienced Rhea Ripley. I thought the two of them had great chemistry, and I think that Gonzalez has got a great future ahead of her. We know that Rhea Ripley is going to be an absolute mega star, but I love this match. I thought it was great. The two women knocked it out of the park. But give us your thoughts.
I thought it was a great match, and what I'm about to say, I don't want to take away from any performer, either Ripley or Gonzalez. I think it went on a little bit too long. I would have liked to have seen a couple of minutes, 5 possibly, shaved off this match and put onto the cruiserweight match.
Yeah, good point.
Give them a little bit more to see what they could do. And I know that it could be building to bigger and better things, but what's going to happen now with Ripley and Gonzalez? Where are they going to go from here? Because now Ripley's like, well, I've beat you, don't have to prove anything anymore. Where's she going to go? What's going to be next for Raquel Gonzalez? Is it going to carry on? Is it going to escalate? It was a good match. It was a hard fought match.
They laid it in, didn't they? They laid it in hard.
Yeah. I'm a little bit disappointed, though, that Spin the Wheel, Make the Deal wasn't on every match.
Yeah,
I thought that would have been nice. Great match. I didn't think Raquel Gonzalez was going to win it. I didn't think she would. It was obvious. Rhea looks badass. She's changed her look again. I absolutely loved it, but I would have liked to have seen it a little bit shorter, but that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, one observation I've got regarding Rhea Ripley is that I think there was a point in time where her gimmick seemed to overtake the wrestler Rhea Ripley, but now I think she's got the balance back again, and she's putting in these good matches. She looks great. The gimmick is there, but it's less about her personality and what she looks like, and it's more about the wrestler now. And that's what I always liked about Rhea Ripley when she kind of first turned into this badass kind of punk chick, and she's really that kind of killer again. But I thought Raquel Gonzalez was more than a kind of a match for her last night or 2 nights ago. This was a good match, and I want to see more from these two in some way, shape or form. But some bright futures, definitely. And then in a bit of a comedy segment, Lexi, we see Drake Maverick. He's backstage, dressed up as Hollywood Hulk Hogan brother, and we see the Yeti and another wrestler dressed up as Paul White, or the Giant, whatever Big Show was known as in WCW. Then we see Killian Dane kind of getting into the spirit of things, dressed as the Shockmaster with a Shockmaster helmet and furry vest. Drake Maverick kind of wonders why he didn't fall over like planned, like the original Shockmaster did back in the early 90s, and instead Drake Maverick, he puts on the helmet and falls over himself. So a nice bit of comedy there, and I am enjoying the kind of duo of Drake Maverick and Killian Dane, kind of like two opposite sides of the coin. Killian Dane, the killer, very serious wrestler. Drake Maverick, a bit more of a comedy character, but a scrappy underdog babyface. But I think they are warming to one another. I think Killian Dane is starting to tolerate Drake Maverick a bit more, but a little bit of comedy here. But let's get back to the Cameron Grimes match, because Cameron Grimes does run all the way from the haunted house to the CWC, but he says a little bit different. So the whole ringside area is set up in like a spooky graveyard setting. There's dry ice or smoke. There's zombies thrown in for good measure. Then Dexter Lumis, as he likes to, appeared from out of nowhere. We get zombies start crawling into the ring at this stage. Lumis even launches one of the zombies at Cameron Grimes. Cameron Grimes is not a happy bunny. He's not enjoying this at all. He's not enjoying the whole zombie experience. Clearly terrified beyond his wits' end. And then Lumis just hooks on a sleeper, puts Cameron Grimes to sleep, and this rather bizarre but fairly entertaining Haunted House of Terrors match is over. It wasn't much of a wrestling match. I don't think it can be described as a wrestling match. Like I said at the beginning, more of a cinematic match. Some zombies thrown in there for good measure. But did they achieve what they set out to in this one, do you think?
I think it was a nice little bit of fun, to be honest. I think it was a chance for Dexter Lumis not only to have that first cinematic experience in terms of wrestling, but it was also a nice way of getting, zombies and paying homage to the ECW zombie that, was a pass. I have to say though, Cameron Grimes made me laugh, and I'm pretty sure it's unintentional. He keeps repeating, "I'm Cameron Grimes. I'm Cameron Grimes. You better stop." And the way he said it just made me think of a character from the Disney film The Aristocats. And it was kind of like, he says it and he's like, "I'm the leader. Wait a minute, I'm the leader. I say when it's time to go." And it just made me think of that. I don't know why, but that's how my brain works. But it was good. And again, a similar sort of issue with cinematic matches. There was a finish, but there was a little tease of something else. Vic Joseph was like, "Oh, I don't know what's, Cameron Grimes isn't going to like what he wakes up to and stuff like that." And I have to put out 2 gems by Wade Barrett. One of them was the line, "I'm more concerned about what's in the smoke. Try to keep up," which I thought was great. And the other one was, "Is that your hand on my leg, Vic?"
Love it.
And I loved it. I was just like, yes,
great
he's
stuff.
back. And we also have to put a shout out to not only Wade Barrett, but also to Vic Joseph, who were in fancy dress. And I agree that Wade Barrett
came as himself, didn't he? I think
he came as Bad News
Bad
Barrett.
News Barrett, yeah.
And he actually "I've got a bit of bad news for you." And I thought that was ace. So I think he won in my eyes just for that section. So yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I was a big fan of the Bad News Barrett gimmick, and they could have gone a long way with that. They could have gone so far with that. And, honestly, they once again another opportunity lost by WWE. But good to see Wade Barrett on commentary. I don't know if he's got any more wrestling matches in his future, but certainly on commentary he's fantastic. But going back to this kind of Haunted House of Terrors match, Lexi, Cameron Grimes, he's just an undeniable superstar, isn't he? I think whether it's comedy, whether it's in the ring, I think his character is probably one of the best characters in wrestling at the moment. And I absolutely love his kind of, I don't know if it's a hillbilly character, but I just absolutely dig it. And I think he gets it. He 100% gets it. And I think his character, the way he looks, he doesn't take himself too seriously, but we know that he can deliver it, in front of a microphone, in front of a camera, in a wrestling ring. I think he's fantastic, and he's still very young. I think he's only in his early 20s, maybe 24, so he's got such a bright future ahead of him, especially when they're featuring him on TV every single week. Whether he wins or loses, it doesn't seem to hurt him at all. But I'd say, I'd like to see him challenge for maybe the North American Championship or something down the line. I think he deserves a little bit of silverware. But I think he's absolutely fantastic. I love everything Cameron Grimes does. On the flip side, I don't really understand or get the Dexter Lumis character, and I think he's quite boring, to be honest with you. And things like this are fine, but as a serious wrestler or a gimmick, I can't take him seriously at all. But let's talk about Tommaso Champa. because he did a bit of a backstage segment then, Lexi, and he said that he was Mr. NXT, but fate took that away from him. We all know that he had that a neck injury and neck surgery when he was champion back in 2019 and wasn't able to defend his championship in that big grudge match against Johnny Gargano that they've been building for so long. He also sends out a message to the Velveteen Dream, who he'll be facing on next week's NXT. So that's one match to look forward to, kind of a big headline match, Velveteen Dream versus Tommaso Ciampa. We've also got Ember Moon versus Dakota Kai. So those two matches should deliver quite highly. But are you looking forward to next week's show? Will you be watching those two matches? What kind of stands out to you?
Yeah, for me, what stands out is the promo and the intensity and the way that he addresses how NXT has changed.
Yes.
And for me, I don't ever want Ciampa to go up to the main roster. I know that he said quite publicly he doesn't want to leave NXT ever. He much prefers it there. And I think having him there and having that flicker of NXT past is really, really important, because there's always that tease then that it could go back to what it once was when it was an hour show, when it wasn't on a major network. I think calling out the Velveteen Dream, absolutely fantastic. Absolutely lives up to his Psycho Killer persona of old. Shows that he's still got it. He's still got the fight. So very much looking forward to that match. Haven't seen too much of the Ember Moon Dakota Kai feuds. I'm a couple of weeks behind NXT. I bumped this one up because obviously appearing on here.
Yeah.
But I'm very, very excited. I popped really, really hard when Ember Moon returned. I've said for a long time she deserves a lot better than what she got on the main roster, and hopefully she can continue to be as kick-ass in NXT as she was previously. And I've seen a couple of people have said, going to NXT, going back to NXT is a demotion, and I'm like, how is it a demotion when you look at the likes of Finn Balor, who is now 2-time NXT champion and leading the brand essentially. But yeah, so
yeah, I think getting the glimpse, so it's probably not the glimpse. I think we've been seeing it for a little while now of the old Tommaso Ciampa, when, in my views, NXT was at its kind of peak, when Adam Cole and Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa, and all these great names were at their peak. And I think since the show's gone to 2 hours, that's probably hindered the show and the overall kind of quality of the show. But now we've got heel Tommaso Ciampa back. I think that's the best version of Tommaso Ciampa that we could possibly wish for, and I'm hoping that he really kind of does a number on the Velveteen Dream next week. But let's talk about the main event then, Lexi. It was a phenomenal match, and we've spoken about some good matches already, but this was for the NXT Women's Championship. Io Shirai, Candice LeRay. It was another spin the wheel, make the wheel deal, and Shotzi was there, and it wasn't table, ladders and chairs, it was tables, ladders and scares. So pretty much a TLC match. The championship bout will be suspended above the ring like all good TLC matches. And this match just blew me away, to be honest with you. It was very, very good. Just to go through some of the highlights, early on, Candice pulls out a table from underneath the ring, and there was a bag full of body parts, which was probably the weirdest thing that I'd seen, certainly during this match anyway. Io uses some of the body parts to club Candice with. The two fight around the ringside area, with Candice using a laptop. They set up a ladder as a bridge, and a whole load of chairs are pulled out from underneath the ring and shoved into the ring, and some tables as well, as you would expect. They set up a bit of a battleground essentially around ringside. Io connects with a stiff suplex on the outside as the two continue to fight around the ringside area. Io then misses a moonsault, and landing instead onto the pile of chairs that were set up previously. Candice gets suplexed onto one of the chairs in the ring, and that looked like it sucked. Really, really bad for Candice there. Candice then gets the upper hand with a wicked spinning net breaker, sending Io crashing through a couple of tables that are set up at ringside. Then Lexi, we see the same masked attacker in the Scream mask from the first show, helped Johnny Gargano, of course, from the first match. This time helping Candice to scale the ladder in a bid to grab the championship belt. But Shotzi Blackheart, the star of the whole 2 hours, in my opinion, runs in to save the day. She drops the masked wrestler onto a pile of chairs, leaving it to just Candice and Io to finish the match. And just as Candice is about to unhook the belt, Io runs in, tips Candice off of the ladder. She goes tumbling over the top rope and down onto the ladder that was set up as a bridge a bit earlier on. That move looked like it sucked. Yeah. And Candice looks like she was in quite a bit of pain. I think there was one very, very brief shot of her crying. But whether it was a wooden ladder or a metal ladder, that thing broke in half and she looked like she was in pain. But she's quite a physical wrestler. She's been in tough matches like this before, but that was a hell of a bump. Yeah, this allowed the champ to scale another ladder and grab the belt to retain her championship. I thought this match was thrilling. I thought it wasn't overproduced. I thought the stunts were great. I thought the use of the tables and the ladders especially were fantastic. I personally, I think the best outcome for this would have been for Candice to win. I think it wouldn't have harmed Io too much to have lost the belt. So I think that it would. I think it's time that Candice, because this is her second or third attempt at the championship now, Lexi, and she's fallen short only just every single time. So I would have liked to have seen, in the spirit of Halloween Havoc, I think that her costume and her gimmick was very, very Halloween orientated, especially with Johnny winning the North American Championship in the first match. But no, Io Shirai won the match, retained her title. This match was stunning. I do kind of fear a little bit for Candice. I think she's going to be out of action for a little while after that bump through the ladder. But I'd love to know your thoughts on this one. I thought it was amazing.
I've written down, I think it's a match of the year contender, to be honest.
It's definitely up there, yeah.
It had everything. I mean, you were speaking about the tables. I love the fact that they had the chalk outlines of people on the tables. I thought that was great. One of the other things I wrote was, are body parts legal in a tables, ladders and chairs match?
Apparently so.
Yeah. Apparently so, yeah. I have to say, the match was so good that I'd completely forgotten that Candice LeRay had set up the bridge. Completely, because I was so engrossed. I will disagree with you slightly on Candice winning. That she should have won. I thought it was the right call because it was a little bit too predictable. If Johnny, might not have won, or it would have gone to some sort of DQ or whatever, or a non-contest, for example, it would have made sense because obviously they're heels at the moment and Candice LeRay can be like, well, I did it and Johnny wasn't beaten, stuff like that. So I think in terms of the next stage, I think maybe we could see something at War Games possibly between the two of them, and I think she'll do it then. I think 2 title changes on a takeover and not, I think it would be a bit too much.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
Can I just point out as well, I do feel very, very sorry for Poppy. I don't know whether it came across when you watched it. Poppy did the entrance theme for Io Shirai and her mic failed from the version I watched.
Yeah, no, I couldn't make out any lyrics from Poppy at all.
No, I could hear something, but I couldn't hear it properly. So it would have been kick-ass if that had gone properly. Also, as well, can we have orange and black ladders all the time? Because they look cool.
Yeah,
they look really, really cool. It had everything though. It had run-ins. It had Shotzi, and I'm convinced that Shotzi took out that bloke in platform heels. So it's got a thicker sole and then a taller heel. I think she did. I didn't quite catch it, but if she did, that's impressive as hell. So well done, Shotzi.
Well, the rumor is that the mystery kind of masked wrestler that seems to be aligning with Johnny and Candice is actually female wrestler, women's wrestler Indy Hartwell, who's been featured once or twice on NXT, but she's going to be made into a bigger deal. Now, it turns out that it will be Indy Hartwell, but it wasn't Indy Hartwell that was under the mask during Halloween Havoc, because I think Indy Hartwell is kind of out, isolating, or she's been in contact with people with COVID. But it will be Indy Hartwell that will be joining that little group.
That'll be interesting. I think that plays in quite well then, if that's the case, for Candice winning the title.
Yeah.
Already my shenanigans sensors going off. You know, I can't wait to see. I mean, I would love to see Candice LeRay as champion, either as face or heel. I like her. You know, she's got something about her that really does come through beyond wrestling. But yeah, I think she's going to do it. I think there's going to be a lot of shenanigans going on.
Yeah. I've got to say, I think that her Poison Pixie character at the minute is second to none. I'm absolutely digging it, and not so much from Johnny. I think he's playing a decent heel, but Candice just steals the show as the Poison Pixie. I think she's fantastic.
Yeah. And her costume, I don't know if you noticed this, but she had bigger wings than she normally wears.
Right.
So to get into the ring, she actually had to hold them and bend them around her to get in.
Yeah.
Which I thought was quite cool, because I was thinking, how's she going to get in? How's she going to get in the ring? Is she going to, you know, but it was great. I love the costume. I love the fact that Johnny as well at the very beginning paid homage to The Nightmare Before Christmas. And I think that came through as well in Candice's attire as well.
Yeah, she also played the kind of Jack Skellington's I can't remember the name of the female character in Nightmare Before Christmas, but yes, you could tell in her face makeup and her attire, but really, and she always has amazing gear. So does Johnny. So credit to them. But I thought this was a great main event, and it capped off a really, really good show. A bit of a mixed bag of a show, I've got to be honest with you. The whole Dexter Lumis, Cameron Grimes stuff was a little bit out there. But then when you consider, you know, that you could say that Cameron Grimes was in a bit of a nightmare scenario. It is Halloween, so they can be forgiven for having a little bit of a comedy cinematic match, you could say, zombies and all. I thought the opening match was good. I think you enjoyed the opening match a little bit more than I did, but the main event really stole it. I thought Gonzalez and Rhea Ripley was absolutely phenomenal as well. So overall, a really, really good show. But would you agree with me there? Yeah,
absolutely. The things that I didn't like about it had something else that made up for it. So it was a really great show. It had that very different feel, that very different vibe that set it apart from a normal episode of NXT, and also a takeover as well. It had people doing insane things for little belts, which we always love. You know, it was great, and to have sort of a little bit of a crowd there, and then also to have the Thunderdome as well was awesome. And I think that's what also made it feel a bit more special as well, because I don't know whether they're piping crowd noise in or not, but it was certainly louder than I remember last time I watched it. But yeah, incredible show, show.
And not forgetting the return of Pete Dunne back to the black and gold brand as a heel, but like I say, I do think he has a bit more of an edge as a heel as opposed to being a babyface. That'd be interesting to see what happens there. I think Pat McAfee absolutely kills it on the microphone. I think he's fantastic, and his match against Adam Cole was great. So we'll probably see a lot more from those two factions at War Games. And once again, I mean, he started with Shotzi. We saw Shotzi in the main event. I thought she was fantastic throughout. I thought that she was great as a host, but I think I said to you off air that next year, whether it be Halloween Havoc or something similar, she needs to be in the main event challenging for the title. I think if they don't put her in the title picture soon, then they're missing out on a trick there. But Lexi, it's been amazing having you on the Wrestling with Johners podcast again, and you know, talking about NXT Halloween Havoc, which I thought overall was a really, really good show. But before we let you go, give us them plugs for the Turnbuckle Arms. If you know the socials or where we can get in touch and where we can listen to the podcast, now's your chance.
Oh, thank you very much. So we are on Twitter at the Turnbuckle Arms Podcast. We are on Instagram on the Turnbuckle Arms Podcast. We are now on Facebook, again, Turnbuckle Arms Podcast. And again, you can email into us at the turnbucklearms@gmail.com. We would love to have some more fan interaction. We'd love to hear what you think, any questions you want to ask us. Do you want to challenge Grizz, for example? Because I've proven that Grizz can sometimes be wrong.
Surely not.
Yes, twice. And it's a shame that I think Grizz did it on purpose. The podcast that got lost, Grizz had to check it and he was like, I'm wrong. And I think he's purposely lost it so that's not out there, but there we go. Please follow, listen, subscribe. We're all over the place. We're even on YouTube, which I keep forgetting because it's very surreal to see my face on my TV.
And Powered 4 TV as well.
Yes, which is awesome. And of course, yourself, the lovely With Johners podcast, shares everything that we do as well, and vice versa. So it's a nice little family we've got going on.
It's all good. And one thing I will say is if you ever listen to the audio version of any Turnbuckle Arms podcast, listen to the very, very end, please. Do yourself a favour and listen to the last 10 seconds because there's always a little bit of a hidden gem there from myself when I do the editing. But Lexi's thinking, oh, what does he do? But you'll only know if you listen to the very end.
I know.
And it involves Grizz. But anyway, Lexi, it's been brilliant speaking to you. We'll have to do this again. We can't leave it so long next time. But from myself and from Lexi Helms, we'll catch up with you all again soon.
See you soon.